Hello lovelies, my name is Eric Haddish. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I've got you guys at my altar today because we're going to have a little bit of a chat about altars. I am in the temple room, so it's a little bit echoey in here, I think, so please forgive maybe the drop-in sound quality. This is just recorded on the iPad, you know, we're not exactly high-tech. So bear with me as we go through. Hopefully you'll still be able to get something out of this. I wanted to talk about altars because I had a chat with a friend of mine recently who is an initiate of British traditional Wicca, and he was saying about how he doesn't keep an altar in his home, he doesn't keep a shrine, and the reasoning that he gave was that in traditional Wicca, the altar is portable. It's something you set up and then take down because they work in that sort of portable temple called a circle. And I've sort of been thinking about it a little bit and how I relate to altars, what I use them for, and what I want to get out of them. And so I thought I would share my thoughts with you guys and ask for your thoughts as well, and see if you guys resonate with anything that I say, or if you have completely disparate ideas about how this stuff works and how you should set them up and things like that. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Now, of course, in each tradition, they're going to have their own ideas about how to set up an altar. This altar that you're looking at is an eclectic Wiccan altar, so it's not really set to the specifics of any one tradition. Most of what I do is just sort of amalgamate what I can from various Wiccan texts to decide what should be happening here. I have a statue of Apollo, and a statue of Hecate, and a bust of Venus that my grandmother made. So I sort of have that sort of masculine and feminine, and then in the center I have the newest figurine, which I quite love. It's got these two figures dancing, and I really enjoy that. So I do have that divide of masculine and feminine in the altar, which I think is traditional for Wiccan altars. I do keep my magical tools in this space as well. And for me, the altar is almost like an art installation. So I use the altar as a way to express whatever spiritual revelations I'm having at the time. My initial teacher who trained me in eclectic witchcraft, they're in the process of pursuing Gardnerian training, and I've always had a love for the Alexandrian system. And so it's interesting that a lot of people in my life right now are sort of being called home in that way to British traditional Wicca. And the people that I do know who are traditional Wiccans have been saying as well that they've had a lot more interest recently, in regards to people wanting to join their groups. So I think that that's really interesting. That there is sort of this renaissance happening in terms of British traditional witchcraft, which I think is really cool, and I think it's really good, that people are seeking out that traditional training. And mentoring and training is definitely something that I want to cover on this YouTube channel at some point, so maybe I'll try to record a video after this and see how that goes. Because I do have a lot of thoughts about that. That's something that's been on my mind a lot lately as well. But yeah, just for altars, I mean, I do have a number of different shrines and stuff in this temple room. This is just sort of my working altar, I guess you could say. But even then, if I'm doing Solomonic work, I have a separate little table that's not set up with anything, and just when I roll out the circle, place the altar in there, that's when it gets set up. And it was interesting to me that this friend of mine was talking about how, for him, he doesn't keep an altar in his home because the altar is portable, and I was like, well, it's based on what operations you're doing, and I sort of thought oh yeah, that's a very Solomonic idea, that's how we approach it in that system. So it's interesting to me how many eclectic Wiccans feel the need, or even some traditional Wiccans, because I know that Thorn Mooney at least keeps a ton of altars in her home. So there is some sort of precedent for that, I guess. But yeah, and when Thorn Mooney talks about it, she talks about how it grounds the room and grounds the space, and I feel especially because this is a temple room, and I do my workings in this room, and quite often at this altar, although there are still the temporary altars that happen depending on what I'm doing, but for witchy type stuff, rather than the Solomonic magician type stuff, I do the witchy type stuff here, or on my ancestor altar, which is just adjacent. But I won't share that on camera, just because of their privacy. I won't put them in that situation. But I feel like the gods, the Hecate and Apollo that I have here, are happy for me to film this space. So yeah, it's interesting. You know, I also have a space for my guardian angel. I also have a space for some other guides and stuff that I work with as well, and some spirits from the voodoo tradition, the Loa. I do have 2 little spaces set up for 2 of the Loa as well. So there is a lot happening in this room, and this is just one specific focal point. Having this space that I can come to every day and just sit and center myself and be centered in that practice, and you know, interact with the gods sort of on a more frequent basis than when I would actually go about casting Circle. It makes it a little bit more casual, you know, and I think the gods and the spirits that we work with, they want us to have them in our lives, right? That's why they interact with us, is because they want to experience through us. And I think one of the best ways that we can do that and honor them is by setting up a physical space in our home and saying, this is for you, this is your space and where you live. And for me, that's this room. This room is entirely dedicated to spirit work. And so, like, having them in here just makes sense to me as a constant, because it means that there's a space in my home where they belong, where they're welcome, and it invites them into my life in that way. And by giving up an entire room, really 2 rooms, because I have a second room where I keep a lot of the products and stuff that I make, which are, you know, consecrated and blessed in here and then are stored in a separate room. So there's really 2 rooms that have been taken over, and then my bedroom as well has all my bookshelves and stuff. So everywhere is touched by magic in my house, and, you know, by filling my space with this stuff and stuff that belongs to my spirits, it invites them into my life in a really tangible way, in a way that they actually influence the space that I occupy. And so, like, they are incorporated into everything that I do within this space. So cleaning and maintaining the space, you know, like how I decorate, all that sort of stuff is very much influenced by my magical practice and my magical views. And not everything will stay on the altar at all times. You know, I have a variety of different altar cloths and, you know, different tools and weapons that I may want to use for different proceedings. But I have massive cupboards as well in this room that are full of all the other ritual items that I don't use all the time, or maybe don't need right now, and they're all sort of stored away. So my main working altar changes and shifts all the time. Sometimes it's very influenced in one system, other times it's very chaotic and just has everybody all on there together. I don't do that as much anymore, especially now that I'm leaning again into the spirit model a little bit more. And I just sort of made this video all about how, like, I am staunchly in the psychological model, and for me it's really healthy to come back to that, to come back to a psychological model. Otherwise I do get a little bit too woo-woo and a little bit lazy as well, I think, because I get a very much like, oh, the spirits will take care of it kind of mindset, and forget that I actually have to interact with the world as well. So I tend to come back to that psychological model frequently, because it does give me a safe space for me mentally to rest on my laurels and to sort of take stock with what's going on, and not to put too much emphasis, because, you know, we are still human and we do still live in the manifest world. You know, I can't live my entire life in this temple. You know, I still need to eat and shit and do all those other human things that we have to do. So, you know, there's not that option for me to exist solely here, as much as some of us I think want to, you know, and there's definitely been times when I have wanted to as well, just sort of forget the physical, forget the manifest, and just sort of retreat into the spiritual. And I think we need that sometimes, and I think that that is okay sometimes, but for me at least, it's very important that I come back to that psychological model and say, you know, it's very important, Eric, that you understand that this might just all be in your head. Do not sacrifice the entirety of your life for this one aspect. You know, you still need to have relationships, you need to still have a focus on diet and exercise and all those things that I really suck at, because it's so much easier just to sit and meditate and go off into the clouds somewhere. But yeah, I think having an altar space in my home is really important to me. Even if it does fluctuate and change and shift and whatever, it's a good place for me to be able to come and ground myself and center myself, especially when I'm having days like today, which are a little bit frantic, and it's gotten to nearly midday and I haven't really gotten anything done that I wanted to do. And so it's nice for me to be able to come here, light the candles, sit with the gods, say my prayers, do some prayer beads, whatever it is that I'm feeling into, you know, draw some cards or something. It's nice to have a space where I can come and recenter and refocus. And, you know, I do that as well with my practices like journaling and stuff, but that all happens at my desk, you know, that doesn't happen at the altar. The altar is sort of, I love the way that Kellyanne Maddox always talks about her relationship with her altar and how, you know, the altar takes the brunt of the bullshit and all those sorts of things. I really love how poetically she speaks about her relationship with her altar. But yeah, for me, there very much is that art installation aspect of it, where you can look at my altar and sort of get a feel for what's going on in my spiritual life at that time. And right now I'm feeling very structured, I'm feeling very traditional and sort of leaning into that witchier side of things again. So I'm reading a lot of witchcraft texts. I've almost finished rereading Witchcraft Today by Gerald Gardner. I'm rereading Witchcraft and Paganism in Australia by Lynn Hume. And I am also finishing up Non Domi. I don't know if I've said that correct, but it's an initiate's journey into Haitian voodoo. So those three texts are really interesting. Like I said, I just finished Traditional Wicca by Thorn Mooney as well. So that's been really cool. I really recommend that book. It was fantastic, actually. But yeah, that's sort of what's going on for me right now. Lots of events coming up soon, which is exciting. I'm doing Winter Wellness in June. That's the 8th and the 9th in Caboolture. And I'm going to be teaching in a few weeks at Sacred Space in Sandgate, where I will be doing a spell of lemon and pins from the Gospel of Aradia, and I think we're also doing some hot foot powder that night as well. So those are exciting. I'm also, next weekend on the 2nd, I'm going to be hosting the first of what I'm hoping will be a long line of Hecate Dark Moon rituals. My previous coven, one of my previous covens that I trained in was dedicated to Hecate, and we used to do Dark Moon rituals for her every month. And so it's nice to be bringing that back to life and doing that again, and we'll be doing it in the same covenstead as well, the same cemetery where we used to work. So I'm pretty excited for that. I'm excited to be hosting that and bringing a constructed ritual back to the north side of Brisbane, because we don't really have a lot of ritual events. We've got a lot of meetups and stuff like that, meditation groups and things, but there's not really any constructed rituals that happen regularly in one place in one time sort of thing. Outside of Sacred Space, I guess, but they do a different thing every week. So yeah, I'm hoping to sort of keep going with that and keep on keeping on with the dark moons and the rituals and all that sort of thing. At Winter Wellness, I'll be doing a workshop, which is really exciting. I'm going to be talking about history and function of talking boards and Ouija boards. And there will be a bunch of Ouija boards for people to play with. Because I want to debunk some of the sort of myths and stories behind Ouija boards and just clear up misconceptions and help people to use them in a safe and constructive way. Because so many people are worried about like negative juju that's going to happen to them if they play with those sorts of things. So, but yeah, I'm just rambling now, so I hope you guys are okay with this kind of rambly, vloggy type video. And I hope that you are all well. So until I speak to you next time, bye.